In the last few weeks, you'd have seen and perhaps felt the flooding that we've seen in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape, the heavy rains in KwaZulu-Natal earlier this week, intense hail in parts of Joburg. We all know there's going to be more intense weather events, which means councils have to prepare for this. Miyelani is the Group Chief Advisor at Ntiyiso Consulting. Miyelani, good afternoon to you. Good to talk to you again. I mean, for a city to be resilient, to be able to continue operating with these kind of extreme, intense weather events, what do they need to do?
Well, I think as we've seen, they need a quick recovery strategy. Because all of the inclement weather that we're seeing requires that, there is response. It requires that, there be skills on the ground, there be vehicles, there be logistics that are put in place. And of course, a grand plan that, guides all of those different components such that, everyone knows what role they should play. As well as making the resources available from a financial point of view to activate even the external support which they require. So previously we've spoken about, the matters of capabilities, which goes into the skills that are resident within municipalities. But more specifically in this case, we're also looking at emergency, we're also looking at engineering skills, and we're also looking at obviously the finance people that will be ensuring that they are able to procure the various things that are required to keep the city running, even under a disaster.
I mean, this is a lot about planning. This is also about making sure you have the right people. And you need people sort of preparing for this kind of thing, as their full-time job. Are those skills available? Are they expensive?
Well, in this case, it means that the skills profile of municipalities is going to have to change significantly. Of course, we see the cities that have big emergency fire departments and all of those components which are quite helpful. Some of the smaller municipalities, unfortunately, don't have nearly the kind of muscle that the bigger cities have. So it means that from a skills profile, from an infrastructure point of view as well, there needs to be the different skills that are put in place, your health and safety officers, people who are going to be directing, for instance, the evacuations. And I think, in a way, we need to get to a point where municipality also goes through the drills of evacuating a particular part of the town and being able to move particular people to safety. But the other thing that we've seen with the likes of China and other countries is also the ability to be able to construct medical facilities within days such that, they can admit various people. So one part is the skills. The other side is also the ability to put up infrastructure that is required for serving people during an emergency.
A lot of it's also, it's boring stuff, but isn't it also about cleaning stormwater drains to make sure that they don't get backed up? That kind of, boring, important, vital, critical maintenance.
And that is the aspect of maintenance that is required. And that maintenance cannot be put back, for any other reason. And it requires that, as you've put it, for the checks and balances to be done, it requires, in parts, technology to be able to check that the stormwater drainage are draining properly. Of course, the use of technology is something that is coming up, but it also requires the human resources, the labor, to be able to go and clean and suckle out whatever the issues are that, are maybe blocking the pipes and ensuring that all of that, the wastewater treatment plants are also functioning. So really it's to understand the map of the pipe network, also to understand the electrical infrastructure, and for the telcos to understand how their fiber or their cables are running, so that they can understand exactly where the fault lines could be and be able to check all of those aspects on a habitual basis according to a plan.
There are various other things. We all know that councils battle with money, Miyelani. You know that better than I do. Do they actually have the money to do all of this? I can't see where they're going to get the money from. And I'm sure they'll ask national government, and national government will say, where do you expect us to get it from?
So the truth is that there isn't sufficient or adequate money to carry out all of this. And this is the aspect of climate finance that we are heading into. We're seeing fewer players that are coming on board with climate finance. But in this case, if we look at the broad scope of climate finance, is to look at how they can move municipalities to have at least, more green technologies. For instance, if the power network fails, at least, there's microgrids that are in place that can at least help in that way. In other cases is to look at constructing. So from an insurance point of view, it means that there needs to be different ways of insuring, especially the infrastructure. Of course, there's things like force majeure, which is the act of God. But even from a point of view where municipalities are looking at constructing or even existing infrastructure, there needs to be at least, some level of insurance that can be able to be claimed against to reconstruct that infrastructure, as well as looking at your development finance institutions that are sitting with climate funds, which they are quite willing to disperse. But that would call for different ways of designing the new infrastructure so that it's also climate agnostic, such that it's lightweight but resilient, and it's able to be constructed timelessly after disasters.
Miyelani, is there evidence that cities are taking this seriously? In Joburg right now, yes, we have a mayor, we don't have a speaker, or maybe we have a speaker, I don't know. It seems to change so quickly. Is there evidence that people are actually focusing on what could turn out to be really important? Preparing for these disasters could literally save lives. Not preparing could literally lose us lives.
Absolutely. So I think the point of it is we're seeing sporadic reactions, or at least the preparations. We're seeing the big cities who are at least taking this a lot more seriously, working with various bodies such as the C40 or the Rockefeller Foundation and other places where they are looking at the totality of the impact of climate change. The smaller towns and the districts, I think that's where we ought to worry. And we know that the bulk of the people are located in the rest of the country in terms of your locals as well as your districts. The cities, of course, as I say, are making some strides. We also know that there's a bill that is currently going through Parliament looking at the whole matter of pushing public as well as private institutions to start planning and having a climate plan for any of these disasters taking place. So that is at least an attempt which is going to also be legislated, and in a way will push and nudge everyone to have some kind of a response that they can put in place in case they face, any kind of the disasters that, we are seeing, whether it's flooding, whether it's fires, earthquakes as well. We've seen that the tremors that have taken place. So I think that is where everyone else perhaps will be coming on board. But seeing the reality of where we are now, not everyone is coming on board as they should and taking the climate chaos that we're seeing seriously.
Miyelani Holeni, thank you. Group Chief Advisor at the Ntiyiso Consulting Group. Really appreciate the time as well.